we interrupt this program to bring you...
Treadway, the Toxic YouTuber Show! Starring the Good or the Bad series! Yep, after some time, we're bringing back this series. We last covered Generation 3, a video that I made about a year and a half before publishing, but that brings us to the next generation. Today, we look at the best and the worst of Sinnoh. What did it offer? What did it excel in? What did it fail miserably in? We'll find out today. Don't forget, if you want your input on opinions on Generation 4, make sure to leave a comment so your voice is heard. With that, let's slowly surf to Sinnoh to see what truly was the best and the worst of Generation 4.
Stupid Pokemon! You're making me look bad!
I feel like when you place all three starters next to each other, everyone always has something good to say about them. In future generations, everyone always complained about at least one of them, but in Generation 4, they seem to be the best trio of starters. Did I say the best trio? I meant one of the best. You got Infernape, the second of the three fire fighting types, but they perfected it once again. Turtwig was adorable and became the rock of trainers' teams, and Empoleon was always a fan favorite as well. They perfected this trio, and I haven't seen anything like this since. But unfortunately, if you didn't start with Infernape but wanted a fire type, well, you're gonna have a bad time. In Diamond and Pearl, if you didn't pick Infernape, well, your options for the fire type was Rapidash and another Rapidash. That was it. I don't know how this got by Game Freak back in the day, but only one non-starting fire type in the game? How did this happen? How did a type as common as the fire type get neglected like this? And don't get me started on the electric type. Nobody talks about it as much as they do with a fire type, but you'll be quite shocked to know that the only electric types in the game were Luxray, and then two rats. That's quite the zinger, huh? Luxray, Pachirisu, and Raichu. That's it. A lot of black marks on this beloved game when it comes to type diversity, huh? I'm about to get pretty biased here, because I cover my favorite Pokemon game of all time, Pokemon Platinum. See, Platinum succeeded where Diamond and Pearl failed. They fixed the slow surfing. They made a more interesting storyline. They fixed the wide gap between Gardenia and Maylene, and they fixed the lack of fire and electric types. Now you also had the choice of three new fire types, Flareon, Magmodar, and Houndoom, while the electric type got access to Rotom, Jolteon, Magnezone, and Electivire. I feel like Diamond and Pearl were great games, but Platinum definitely perfected them even more. But way before the return of those 7 Pokemon to the Sinnoh Dex was a bigger problem of the lack of types. How in the world did Game Freak not see this issue when building the Sinnoh League's teams? I don't get it. How could they have been so oblivious? It's passable through the first 6 gyms, but hit Gym 7 and the wheels fall off. Instead of having Pokemon of that type, they have Pokemon that can use the moves of those types. It's a nice twist, but it makes no sense, since that ruins the type speciality. Candace having a Medicham with Ice Punch? Volkner with a shock-waving Ambipom and Octillery with Charge Beam? Flint having a Steelix? Lopunny and Drifblim was perhaps the worst of the bunch. Okay, I'm done complaining about the type diversity in these games, trust me. But did you know the lack of I gotta stop mentioning future topics in previous parts, but it's the only thing I've got going for me. The only other thing is using the stairs behind me as a prop. But something Generation 4 is known for are the amount of evolutions to older Pokemon. Since this, only 2 generations have done this, but they've done it differently. Generation 6 only had the new evolution Sylveon, while Generation 8 added new evolutions to Galarian forms. But Generation 4 did it the best. 22 new evolutions to old Pokemon? I would take that in Generation 9 in a heartbeat. But the real kicker here is when you find out that all these evolutions are locked behind the National Dex. See, there is a reason that the National Dex is a bad thing. It was a joke! But really, why would you include all these new evolutions, but then leave them out of the main game? That makes zero sense. The one thing that this game does horrible at, I'm noticing, is the lack of variety, and leaving out one of the most prominent additions is just the icing on the cake. In other words, the cake is a lie. One of the biggest changes came in Generation 4, and that was the physical special split. It was a monumental move since some Pokemon were basically unusable because all their moves were the opposite of what they specialized in. Pokemon like Gyarados not being hung out to dry with special water attacks. Gengar not being wrecked because all Ghost-type moves were physical. It fixed a lot of the problems and helped pave the way for the physical and special attackers we know today. That really didn't stop Game Freak from ruining Pokemon's viability for years. The perfect example is Flareon. Flareon was a Pokemon that could benefit from the physical special split since it was always better on the physical side. The problem? They didn't give it any physical fire attacks at that time. It wasn't until 7 years later, in 2013, that it finally picked up a physical fire type move in Flare Blitz, and even then its HP stat wasn't enough to handle the recoil from Flare Blitz. This is of course a minor issue since it wasn't sporadic, but to not adjust to a Pokemon's strength was a pretty big sin back in the day. Something else that was added in this generation paved the way for future generations, and that was the ability to interact with other trainers online. Want a battle? Yeah, I got my 6-man team that all know Dark Void! Oh yeah, that was the thing I did back in the day. But really, not being tethered together, and instead tethered by the network connection, was such a huge change. It allowed friends to interact with each other while using social distancing. Now, you could trade, battle, and do all sorts of things. And I can't talk about this without mentioning the debut of the GTS, or the Global Trading Station, is what it's called. It allowed people to offer up a Pokemon with specific Pokemon to trade for. It was a great way of finding trading partners fast. But even that came at a price as well. Game Freak forgot to limit things when it came to the GTS. You want this Bidoof? Well, congrats. Give me a level 91 to 100 Arceus, Dialga, or Giratina. Great trade! It actually still never got fixed as far into Generation 6, where people were making requests for the mythical Pokemon Hoopa, Diancie, and Volcanion without people knowing what in the world they were. They weren't actually publicly known without the use of data mining. Something from day one that Game Freak should have added was to check the availability of the Pokemon and level to see if it was possible. Otherwise, people were just going to go show off their stuff until people began using Action Replay and trading bogus trades. Now that's just anarchy. But with that will wrap up the good and the bad of Generation 4. With the possibility of remakes for these games on the horizon, I hope they don't gut them like they did with Oros and Sword and Shield. Trust me, Diamond was the first game I got on the release date, the first game being Silver though many years before that. I hold Sinnoh in the highest regard since it was my first Pokemon game that I bought with my own money, and it was my most played Pokemon game until Pokemon X came around. If you want to see remakes next year, let me hear your comments down below. I'm all for it if they do it right, which at this point, I'm holding out hope that they can still deliver, but I've been let down before. But to climb back to the top to see more from this series or any other videos, be sure to click that subscribe button to join the squad today. With that though, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll get you back at the top later on, because that is how we do what. Okay, it's possible. Gen 4 remakes will be great. Man, it's hard to please everyone here.